right, good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. Today being the 29th of May, 2025. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Watu wengi sana wameuliza Ano Dida ako wapi? Yuko tu around, a little break, but she'll be back, not to worry. Now today is the International Day of Peacekeepers. This is a day observed by the United Nations. Meanwhile, Kenya wakes up in mourning following the death of an icon, a titan of modern African literature, none other than Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who passed on at the age of 87. This is just part of the stories we're looking at this morning, even as we look at the dailies today. Yes, once again, the nation wakes up in mourning following the death of an icon, a titan of modern African literature, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He passed on at the age of 87. A quick look at the dailies this morning. Tukiangazia kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo, anasema ni samehe Gen Z. Nani anasema hivyo? Ni Rais Ruto katika hafla ya maombi ya taifa hapo jana. On the Standard, Ruto red card. And I think the Standard is the only one that has been able to at least highlight this piece of news on the death of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Weep Not Child, iconic Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o dies in the US. It's there also on the front page of the Standard. We'll be back to take a look at that. Matters Business, NSSF targets 25 billion shillings stake in Nakuru Road deal with China. That Rironi Mau Summit Road is now on the front pages. Everyone hopes it will finally happen. On the Daily Nation, Matters Education given prominence, pay rise for 23,000 promoted teachers. That's a big story there. On People Daily, now that we're talking about Nisamehe, but People Daily says Ruto sheds crocodile tears over Gen Z protests. A very different kind of tangent there. On the Star, IEBC crisis deepens as vetting stalls. That's another story there, and we'll be looking at more on that. This morning on State of the Nation, even as we look at the big headlines, matters to do with IEBC, the apology that the president issued, as well as continue mourning the death of Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. We'll be having these gentlemen in studio. Wilson Sossion, who's a former SGKNUT and also a former member of the National Assembly. Dr. Peter Mbai will be with us. He's a leadership and governance expert. Manasseh Tunen, advocate of the High Court and political strategist, as well as political risk analyst Dismas Mokua. Do stand by for that, coming your way at 6:30. Also today we'll be having a conversation about the Matahatran 2025. Yes, it's happening again, and we'll be having some officials from the Mata Hospital as well as a beneficiary of the Matahatran, which has been in existence for over 20 years, just to understand what new thing they do expect this year. The run itself will be held on May 31st. This is this coming weekend. Also, it is Global Myopia Awareness Week 2025. What is myopia? Nearsightedness. We'll be having optometrists from Bowes Optical to tell us more about this and what we should or should not do to try and contain this problem. All that coming later on Morning Cafe. Tuvuke boda tuangazie watu wa Uganda wanasema nini. And we start off with a new vision. Kagezi murder, Agasirwe grilled. Investigators seek to uncover how prime suspect got freed in 2015. This is a murder that took place over 10 years ago. I think one person was convicted last week, but the investigations continue. Kagezi murder, Agasirwe grilled. Yes. China-Russia reaffirm bond is also another story there on the front page of this paper, as well as Vision Group journalists sweep SCME awards. Of course, story yao. Kama kawaida tuwezi kosa story ya President Museveni kwenye front page ya The New Vision. Museveni addresses Great Lakes leaders on DRC crisis. It is there on the top strip of this paper. Interestingly, President Museveni and the First Lady, Janet Museveni, do I call it a choral apology? Because they read out a statement together, apologizing. Remember, even President Ruto has apologized. I think it's a season of apologies. Mahali huko, apologizia ule mtu ulimokosea. Still in Uganda, Daily Monitor, and I told you this name, better get used to it. General Saleh. General Saleh invites splits DP bigwigs. Contentious, the presence of General Salim Saleh during the Democratic Party National Executive Committee gathering in Gulu and invitation to attend the delegates conference in Barara tomorrow has kicked up storm, promising a tense convention. What people don't know is that General Saleh is actually President Museveni's brother. Juzi, I think last week, he said that he's going to help contain Mhozi Kairenugaba with regard to the reckless tweets that he's been issuing. And Kairenugaba said, Afande Saleh, I respect you, I will abide by what you say. Do you see the trend? So far, in the last few days, General Saleh's name is on the headlines. Kidogo kidogo Museveni is apologizing. It's like he's exiting. Chunga sana. Imaneno tunayonea mbali. Regional leaders call for respect of territorial integrity. Another photo there of President Museveni and some of the regional leaders attending that conference on DRC. Inside Bobi Wine's plan to capture the North, Bobi Wine kama aliachana na muziki kabisa, matters election, matters politics given prominence there. Remember, Uganda is going to elections next year, 2026. Meanwhile, Tanzania ni mwaka huu, na tukizungumzia Tanzania wanasema nini? The Citizen. Strategic investments propel Tanzania's scientific ascent. Tanzania is rapidly advancing its position on the global scientific stage, driven by a renewed focus on research and innovation, and supported by strategic investments from both government and academic institutions. Ni kama wanajisifu sana, lakini sawa. Experts view these as a pivotal moment for the nation's intellectual growth. Anyway, Rais Samia Suluhu Hassan alisema wako mbele sana, mbele zaidi ya Kenya. So sisi ni nani? Tukubali kama wamesema vile. Matters politics also gets some space, at least half of the front page of the Citizen. CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi, kicks off special congress ahead of 2025 polls. Na pale tunaona CCM holding a special national congress in Dodoma today amidst heightened political anticipation as Tanzania prepares for the upcoming general elections in October. That story is on page 3. They are getting set. The two-day retreat or meeting is scheduled to run until May 30th, which is tomorrow, and it's expected to define the party's strategic direction and finalize key elements in its political roadmap. Matters politics. Our president also makes it to the front page, and I hope you can actually see this. President William Ruto, yesterday during the national prayer breakfast at Safari Park, even as he apologized to Gen Zs, he also issued an apology to both Tanzania and Uganda. Now, Tanzania wamemweka pale kwenye front page. Ile picha wametumia, I don't think it does our president any justice. Lakini wanasema what Ruto's apology means. Remember, we've been having a tiff between Tanzania and Kenya. Tangu the activists and former CJ, former Justice Minister Martha Karua were deported from Tanzania. There's been this back and forth, Kenyans issuing insults, Tanzania's parliament discussing what we are doing here, and finally President Ruto issued an apology. Akasema, kama tumewakosea tusamehe. I'm telling you, it's a season of apologies, but what does it mean to Tanzania? That story is on page 3. You can read it on this paper. All right. Tulikuwa na gazeti ingine ya Mwananchi kule Tanzania, lakini kama ule mwelekezi wangu ni kama ameamua tutafanya hivyo. So we'll be back to take a look at the local dailies in depth in a short while. For now, tuangazie hali ya anga. Will behave, it keeps disappearing, yes, but you can see how the entire continent of Africa is devoid of a lot of cloud cover in comparison to Asia and China, because a lot of the cloud cover is actually domiciled around the West African region, areas around Nigeria, Gabon, and Ivory Coast. When you come closer home, there's a bit of cloud cover in Uganda and South Sudan. Yes, South Sudan, areas around DRC. In Uganda and Kenya, not so much. But you can see from afar, yes, areas around Nairobi, Mount Kenya region, and the western part of the country, there's a bit of cloud cover. So yes, some areas will experience some rainfall probably. Let's start off with the Rift Valley. And in Eldoret, it's a bit chilly this morning. It is clear with periodic clouds, that's what they say. But it's 13 degrees as we speak. Promises to get as high as 24, which is fair weather, not anything to worry about. Zero chance of rainfall today in Eldoret. Let's move on to the Mount Kenya region to encounter the situation to be any different. A bit warmer this morning in comparison to Eldoret. Promises light rain, 15 degrees Celsius as we speak. It will only get as high as 21 degrees. And yes, it is raining throughout the day. But 3.8 millimeters of rain in Nyeri. Yes, that's the Mount Kenya region. Further up north in Garissa, it is quite warm this morning, 24 degrees. clear with periodic clouds, meaning that chances of rain here are very minimal. Highs of 33 degrees Celsius. Precipitation hapa ni 0. Hakuna mvua huko. What about the western part of the country in Kisumu, where incidentally President William Ruto will be beginning his 4-day tour of that region. He's expected to open some projects in Kisumu today and tomorrow ahead of Madaraka Day celebrations, which will be held in Homa Bay. So out of the 4 counties of Siaya, President William Ruto will be in Kisumu and Homa Bay. He's skipping Migori, kule kwenye alirushiwa kiatu, he's not going there. And also Siaya, he won't be going there. So Kisumu, it's 19 degrees Celsius as we speak, mostly cloudy. It promises to rain, especially in the afternoon. Highs of 27 degrees, 2.5 millimeters of rainfall. So yes, a bit lower than what we saw in Nyeri. So fair weather. The president can do a bit of his activities in the morning. Alafu baadaye aende atulize. What about the coast? In Lamu, it's also quite warm, 27 degrees, partly cloudy, a bit of rainfall there, highs of 20 degrees, 2.0 millimeters of rainfall, so even the coast will be getting something. And finally, in Nairobi, there's a situation, it's a bit chilly this morning, and yes, you'll agree with me, Nairobi kuna baridi leo, kijibaridi wanakiita hivyo. It's cloudy, promises to get as high as 23 degrees, which is still a chilly day. A bit of rainfall expected there, 2.3 millimeters of rain. Hii lazima uvae sweater. Kijibaridi, it looks like the season of cold is finally with us, especially in Nairobi. Let's take a look at the traffic situation. Hata kama kuna baridi, lazima tuende kazini. Na ni kama inataka itumie vidole. All right. Courtesy of Google Map, this is how the roads are looking this morning. It's not clear. It will come showing a bit of red, and you can see glaring pale Pangani interchange. Always a problem this early morning. You can see how bad it is. It's quite early for this to be, 12 minutes past the hour, and it's already looking like this, building up as far back as Mathare Mental Hospital. Usually at this time of the day inakuanga tu hapa, but this one promises to become problematic. If you're coming from Kiambu Road or Thika Road, jua you'll spend more time at the Pangani interchange this morning. Other areas, Outer Ring Road kama kawaida, shida tu ni pale. Hata sio shida, hii ni kawaida. Matatu inabeba watu wa kuenda town. Pale Pipeline, further Tasia. Hakuna shida pale. Jogoo Road, nothing out of the ordinary. Mbotela, City Stadium roundabout, same old, same old. Once you get to the CBD, Haile Selassie Avenue building up, that is kawaida, nothing out of the ordinary. Kangundo Road is green, both sides of the road. Wale wanaenda Njiru na wale wanaenda upande ya town, hakuna kitu kuripot pale Kangundo Road. Mombasa Road, a bit of yellow I can see here next to Panari Hotel, just before you get to Next Gen. A bit of yellow there, but now it's disappeared. Whatever was there, I think, has since been resolved. It's green all the way into town. All the other roads are looking good, including Wayaki Way into town. The only problem, pale kama kawaida. And you can see even as we speak, it's stretching further back into the Utalii Drift. Yes, hapa kutakuwa na shida. I hope you can see that. This is a Pangani interchange and Utalii is here. Kidogo kidogo itafika hapa. Hapo kuna shida on Thika Road. So that's the traffic situation. Let's get the quote of the day.
Our mindsets shape our reality, where one sees only obstacles and problems, another finds chances for growth, learning, and triumph amid life challenges and uncertainty.
Yes, let's get back and take a look at the local dailies. The headlines are as varied as they come. We start off with People Daily. Na hawa wajabembeleza rais. Wanasema Ruto sheds crocodile tears over Gen Z protests. He issued an apology yesterday during the national prayer breakfast. Lakini wanasema ini crocodile tears. Wanasema ati kuna ile wada alitumia ati if. Sasa hapo imekuwa crocodile. Sema the problem with Ruto is that he does not mean what he says. This is according to the ex-cabinet secretary, Justin Muturi. whose son, he says, was also abducted at the height of the Gen Z protests. So they're saying he is shedding crocodile tears over the Gen Z protests. Question is anyone taking the president serious in his apology? The other story, of course, given prominence on this front page, is the issue around the saga or the drama surrounding Juja MP George Koimburi. Yesterday, the DCI police chiefs all came out to explain how the MP abducted himself. And I think this is one of the very quick investigations that have been conducted by the police, the DCI. And within 48 hours, they've come up with a resolution and said he abducted himself. Question is, how come they've never told us how the Gen Zs were abducted and who did that abduction? So you know who abducts himself, but we don't know who abducts other people. Interesting. World Bank puts government in tight spot over lofty travel allowances. Wanasema nyinyi muna complain hamna pesa, lakini allowances at travel, they're very high. Pale juu, the hidden cost of menstrual stigma on girls. That's a story on page 3 of this paper. But hey, People Daily, ni kama mmekuja sana leo. Twende kwa Daily Nation, and I do have a physical copy with me this morning. They talk about pay rise for 23,000 promoted teachers, at least a positive headline here. And they call it a breakthrough. MPs had suspended the promotion for 2 months, citing irregularities. Now it's relief. More than 23,000 teachers whose promotions have been pending following investigations by Parliament are now set for higher job grades and enhanced salaries. Something positive for teachers. A parliamentary committee gave the Teacher Service Commission the green light to process their new packs, but struck off 1,864 tutors from the list of beneficiaries. This story is on page 4, but at least a positive headline on our front pages today. Yes, that may be positive, but below that, a very sad story. Denied an ambulance, baby died 2 hours later. This is a story of James Moirore. He's a man captured on a viral video on Monday wailing while holding the body of his grandson and blaming health officials for negligence. He is a troubled and angry man. He believes a death could have been avoided. His 10-month-old grandson died at a Gatundu North hospital in Kiambu. And they've shared the picture there of the baby, James Moirore, who was 10 months old when he died. They've quoted his grandfather saying, "There is money for our politicians to fly choppers, but there is no medicine in hospitals, and the doctors are on strike. God, when will you end the world? We are tired of suffering." That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. So a positive story there, and then a very sad one right below it. Other stories getting space on the front page. Owners of Ngong Forest Club exposed. The relatives of an MP have been linked to the ownership of a farm constructing eco-lodge camps inside Ngong Forest, even as opposition to the project dominated proceedings during a public hearing. A consultant shocked the forum by admitting there was no public participation prior to initiation of the project, which had also not been approved by the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA. Mutadu? That's a question. Police boss details how MP staged his abduction. Yes, that story of Juja MP George Koimburi. Yesterday we saw all the police chiefs, all of them. Ata Gilbert Masengeli ule mwenye alikuanga kitambo, all of them came out to give us a story of how this MP abducted himself. And I just wish they would one day come out, just like that, stand in front of cameras and tell us what happened to the Gen Zs who were abducted last year. Ruto's plea for truce. President reaches out to Gen Zs with half-hearted apology. This is a Daily Nation. Remember, People Daily wamesema ni crocodile tears. Daily Nation wanaita half-hearted apology. Why? Alisema if. On the back page, Wanyama is back. How now? Football followers in the country debate the surprise recall of veteran midfielder to the Harambee Stars squad following his retirement in 2021. And that's the Daily Nation this morning. Taifa Leo wanasema nisamehe Gen Z. Nani anasema? Rais Ruto. Rais aomba radhi kwa namna ambayo inatilia shaka. Hata hapa anasema msamaha unatilia shaka ufaafu wa msamaha huo kwa vijana. Hapo nimelan Kiswahili mpya. Ufaafu. Matupeleka mbio. Rais William Ruto jana aliomba msamaha vijana wa Kenya kwa makosa ambayo utawala wake unaweza kuwa umewafanyia. Unaweza kuwa. Hapo ndio kuna utatanishi ama utata. Wanasema makosa ambayo utawala wake unaweza kuwa umewafanyia kwa miaka mitatu ambayo amekuwa mamlakani. Kama nimekukosea nisamehe. Si ati nimekukosea nisamehe kama. Ndio habari kuu pale. Vidokezo zaidi, hasara tele kwa wakulima. Wakulima Shimba Hills kule Kwale wakadiria hasara baada ya mavuno ya matunda kukosa soko. Habari zingine ambazo zimepewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti hili, masharti ya Putin kwa NATO, na gavana ahamia afisi za kaunti ndogo baada ya koti kumzuia kuingia katika ofisi yake rasmi. Nafikiri huyo ni gavana wa Trans Nzoia na Tembea. Pale Arsenal imepata nafasi kubwa sana kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, na sielewi ni kwa nini. Ni Thierry Henry adai Arsenal FC bado mbichi. Gwiji huyo wa zamani alalamika baada ya Arsenal kukosa kushinda mataji chini ya Arteta. Na mwelekezi wangu ambaye ni jamaa wa ule timu ya wanyongeni sasa ananipigia kelele masikioni na sitaki. Pale juu makachero walivyotibua mlipuko KICC. Wasema magaidi walikuwa wamepanga kulipua jengo kwa bomu, and they link this to the Dusit D2 attack a few years back. Law Society of Kenya yasuta polisi kuhusu ukatili wao. Chama cha mawakili cha laumu polisi kwa kuwanyanyasa na kutisha mawakili. Hizi ndizo habari ambazo zimepewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo hii leo. Tuangazie gazeti lingine, The Star. IEBC crisis deepens. Today being the 29th of May, we do expect the court that halted the vetting of the nominees by Parliament to give its ruling on the matter. Remember, time is running out, so lawmakers are caught in a tight knot of legal and political dilemmas on what to do. The story is on page 4 and 5. Let's see what this legal dilemma means. Some uncertainty hangs thick in the air of Parliament as lawmakers find themselves caught in a tight knot of legal and political dilemmas. The High Court injunction freezing the vetting of President Ruto's nominees has left the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in limbo. The committee is unable to move forward and vet the team led by proposed Chairman Erastus Edung. Yet it is acutely aware that time is slipping away. However much it is legitimate, it serves to delay the appointment process. I think the petitioners should have waited for the process in Parliament and lodged their concerns. Matters IEBC given prominence there. Na ile story ya huyo MP wa Juja, George Koimburi, wameka picha nyingi sana pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa The Star, na polisi wote wale wakubwa wamekuja mpaka wanaenda kwa ile gari. They are even interacting with the evidence. DCI boss, police IG, hata ule mwingine Masengeli, hata NIS director, kila mtu anajua jamaa alijiabduct. Lakini ukiuliza na wale walikuwa abducted last year walikuwa wapi, hiyo hatujui bado. Fresh, independent, different. Pale juu anasema I'm sorry, Ruto apologizes to Kenyan Gen Zs. At least they've not even tried to qualify that statement. Wamesema tu vile ilikuwa. That's The Star. And finally, The Standard. Not finally, at least The Standard. Ruto red-carded. They quote the TIFA poll, nothing to smile about. As economic pain deepens and faith in leadership falters, Kenya is staring at a crisis of confidence, not just in its government, but in its very future. A nationwide survey by TIFA conducted between May 2nd and 6th reveals widespread disillusionment from the soaring cost of living to entrenched corruption and what many term as failed leadership. Kenyans say life has grown markedly worse since 2022. And this is a direct indictment on President William Ruto's leadership. And they have quite a number of statistics there on the front page. It's almost 75%. These are majority of Kenyans. 3 in every 4. They feel that the country is headed in the wrong direction, with the high cost of living being the main reason. Failed leadership, unemployment, human rights abuses, and corruption are the reasons Kenyans feel the president has let them down. That's a Standard. At least this is the one paper that has given at least a highlight following the death of iconic Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who passed on at the age of 87 in the US, and they say, weep not, child. Incidentally, Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o said that when he dies, it should be a celebration of his life and not mourning. So they've used a title from one of his books, Weep Not Child. IEBC seeking 57 billion shillings for next elections. Iko pale, na hata hatuna IEBC, lakini wanataka pesa ya next elections. This is Kenya. That's a standard. Business Daily, NSSF targets 25 billion shillings stake in Nakuru road deal with China. And I like the fact that we are now talking about this road more and more. It was there on the front pages. The Rironi Mau Summit Road. Now we're seeing it again on the Business Daily, meaning that, fine, a positive discussion here. First time fund is putting money in infrastructure project. CRBC eyes 50% share in the toll highway. This is the NSSF wants to buy about half of a Chinese-backed consortium bidding to build a new highway linking Nairobi and Mau Summit for up to 25 billion shillings. At least some Kenyan ownership of that whole business ya kujenga hiyo barabara. Hii barabara ikijengwa, it will actually be a game changer. Yes. World Bank seeks higher beer and cigarette taxes. Kumbuka tuko kwa ile season ya budget making. Wanasema sin tax. On the ticker, State House Social Protection deplete budgets early. The State House and the Department of Social Protection had by end of last month depleted their budgets for salaries and other recurrent items. Treasury disclosures show. Remember hata ile budget ya wale majamaa wanaitwa advisors iko pale kwa State House. More trouble for Keroche as XMD files for liquidation. And another one, why women occupy less than a third of corner offices. These are just some of the dailies today. And I can see Dismas Mukua has already joined me on set. Karibu sana Dismas. Hizi headline unazionaje? Eh? From a political risk angle.
The most interesting and the common denominator is about the apology. It appears that President Ruto, he gave a conditional apology. He said, he qualified and he said if. And only if.
Yes.
And I mean, last night I was reflecting on apparently giving an apology is actually a complicated science. The building blocks of an apology. One of the key building blocks is that you must accept responsibility.
Yes.
That in fact there was an error of omission or commission on your part. And then number two, you must take responsibility. And then you seek reconciliation with the affected persons.
He has not done that.
But for President Ruto, he has not accepted responsibility. He has said that if.
Ni kama
makosa imefanyikana munisamee. Kama kuna makosa.
You don't need.
And that is the reason why I think it's the people.
Wameita crocodile tears.
Wamesema crocodile tears. Then the others are saying it's a red card. However, again, we must give President Ruto credit because it's very rare for leaders, especially in the third world, to actually come up and accept that there was an error of either omission or commission. Maybe the next thing he needs to do, because yesterday it was just, it was really a national event. Now during maybe Madaraka Day, when he's addressing the nation and he knows everybody is glued, he should now offer a straight apology.
Interestingly, in Uganda, the president and the first lady have also apologized, and they did it in choral. They were together, they read a statement together in unison.
Yes.
Saying, Mutusamehe, for the past 40 years, if we've done something, but then they appear to take responsibility. They said, for everything we've done that has not sat well with you, forgive us. Something similar to what President Moi said. Kama nimekukosea mahali, nisamehe. Na kama umenikosea, hata mimi nakusamehe.
And in my view, the president now needs to go the extra mile and remove the conditional part if. And, obviously, as a leader for the last 3 years, he must have committed errors of omission or commission. There must be errors on his judgments.
Do you think he had planned, do you think he had intended to actually issue an apology yesterday, or he was just ambushed by the keynote speaker and told that he should apologize, and he thought, okay, fine, why not?
When you look at President Ruto's leadership style and philosophy, probability of him just taking a decision at the spur of the moment is almost zero. I mean, his entire life he's been attending all these kind of rallies where there's pressure from everybody, but he doesn't cave in. So he must have thought it through. And the Gen Z created a revolution in Kenya.
Okay.
They created opportunities for Mr. Raila Odinga to join the administration. It created an opportunity for Mr. Rigathi Gachagua to be kicked out. So it's something that he must have reflected on.
Okay.
However, he just needs to remove the if bit.
Just before we take a break, let's let's take a quick look at the cartoons this morning. This one is on the People Daily. Kuna jamaa anakula pale kuku minofu na kuna mwingine hapa anaumia. So ule anamwambia, repeat after me. The theme of this year's National Prayer Breakfast is Rise and Rebuild. Anasema the theme, huyu mwingine anasema the theme is Rise and Rebuild. Kuna njaa pale, hapa na rise, anataka rice. People Daily. On the Star, we have unearthed even more evidence. Yes, sahi sababu askari wote wale wakubwa, all of them, wamekuja na when it comes to abduction wanaelewa ni nani alijiabduct, lakini wale wanasema wale wengine wameabductiwa hatujui ni nani. We have unearthed more evidence.
And you know, this is a demonstration that we live in an animal farm. In Kenya, there are people who are more equal than others. You realize when it's a member of the National Assembly or the Senate who gets into trouble, the law enforcement officers go the extra mile.
Yes.
And when it's Tom, Dick, and Harry, you are on your own.
And you can actually see them here. And I like this. This is a Daily Nation. It has all the police bosses there with very long noses. Yeah. Hapa wasema abductions, we don't know. Ile agency, hata wajui hiyo ni nani. Lakini hapa, self-abductions, hiyo we know.
But out of curiosity, why is it a long nose and not a long arm?
Unajua mtu akiwa long nose kama Pinocchio wanasema anafanya nini?
Oh, okay.
That's the Daily Nation. And those are the cartoons. We'll be looking at this and a lot more with Dismas and other panelists after the break, so do stand by for that. Meanwhile, you can interact with us on our social media pages as well as our YouTube page, TV47 Kenya. A lot more coming up on Morning Cafe later on. Keep it here.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided
to cross the bridge, buy his house, and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up.
President William Ruto used the 22nd annual National Prayer Breakfast to mend fences with Kenya's southern neighbor Tanzania after days of tensions caused by the arrest and deportation of Boniface Mwangi, who was tortured, as well as other activists who had traveled to Tanzania to attend the trial of opposition leader Tundu Lissu. President Ruto also offered an apology to Uganda, caught up in a similar situation after Kenya deported opposition leader Kizza Besigye, sparking another standoff with human rights activists led by PLP party leader Martha Karua.
Friends, our neighbors from Tanzania, if we have wronged you in any way, forgive us. Our friends from Uganda, if there is anything that Kenyans have done that's not right, we want to apologize if there is anything.
Tension between Kenya and Tanzania escalated after Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu and the country's parliament told Kenyan activists to stop meddling in the country's internal affairs, with Kenyan Gen Zs taking to social media to attack President Samia Suluhu.
Tumeanza kuona mtiririko au mwenendo wa wanaharakati ndani ya region yetu hii kuanza kuvamia na kuingilia mambo yetu huku. Sasa kama kwao wameshadhibitiwa, wasije kutuharibia huku.
The president's olive branch also came with another first after the president apologized to the country's Gen Z, a crucial voting bloc in 2027, highly critical of his administration. Since last year's deadly protests, it however came with a rider from Deputy President Kithure Kindiki.
To our children, if there is any misstep, we apologize. to our neighbors. If there is any misstep that we have done, you know, we want to build the relationship that will make our country great and will take us forward.
Your Excellency, therefore, as much as we agree with the need for us to reconcile and build relationship with our children, we respectively request our children also to realize that there is a role we can play.
The president's public apology was in response to a call by visiting American pastor Ricky Bolden, who urged leaders during the prayers to pursue reconciliation.
If leaders would stand up and say to our Gen Zs, we had you arrested, and we know that had to be traumatizing, and we're sorry.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the opposition fraternity led by Kalonzo Musyoka and Rigathi Gachagua skipped the event. President Ruto telling leaders to shift energy from blame to building bridges.
In the book of Isaiah 54:17, and I quote, "No weapon formed against you will prosper." This book of Isaiah further teaches us that great leaders never lose sight of the big picture.
Despite a flurry of apologies and a call to national unity, President William Ruto still faces the challenge of a divided nation due to political persecutions and human rights violations. Apul Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
Calls for apology to the young people on the extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances in the June 2024 protests took center stage Tuesday on the 22nd edition of the National Prayer Breakfast.
And one of the things I prayed for is I said, here's my prayer. I said, Lord, I pray the adults would apologize to our Gen Zers.
To our children, if there is any misstep, we apologize.
However, young people have termed the head of state's apology as backhanded, noting that it should be accompanied with action.
As a Gen Z, I have accepted the apology with the rest of Gen Z. I believe the apology should be authentic, it should be real. We as Gen Z, we should be given a platform, we should be given an ear.
And for an apology to be accepted, the apology needs to come out as a very genuine apology.
Actions speak louder than words. So if they're saying sorry, the abductions should stop, because until now, we have cases of people being abducted. We find bodies in dams almost every day.
First of all, the death that happened during the Mandamano was never acknowledged by the government, and I feel like that would be a starting point for the apology. I'd also like to see the Gen Zs get a seat at the table.
This as the Dagoretti North MP Beatrice Alachi, in her confession prayer, castigated the abuse of social media use, a tool that the Gen Zs used to call for accountability.
And Father, we pray that this social media that has decided to run our country, Father, that spirit, my Father in heaven, we want to confess as the legislators that indeed we must sort out that sector.
However, equally, we respectfully request our children also to respect authority and also agree to be mentored and supported.
They haven't really not had us. They haven't really, because police officers are still part of the government. They've really caused us harm. They have really caused us damage a lot. We have spilled a lot of blood.
With the calls for apology taking center stage on today's National Prayer Breakfast, all eyes are on the government to see what action it will take. Stanley Nyiringita, TV47, Nairobi.
Yes, that apology by President William Ruto, especially to the young Kenyans, is what makes it to most of the headlines today. People Daily, not mincing words, Ruto sheds crocodile tears over Gen Z protests. That's a big headline on the front page of the People Daily. The Daily Nation, it's not the biggest headline, but it's there on the top strip. They say Ruto's plea for truce. President reaches out to Gen Zs with half-hearted apology. You've heard what the young Kenyans say. That's where we start the conversation this morning. Allow me to introduce my panelists. My immediate right, Wakili Manasseh Tunen. Wakili, karibu sana to TV47. Yes, next to Wakili Manasseh, we have Wilson Sosion, Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, a former SG of the National Union of Teachers and also served as member of the National Assembly. It's a pleasure to have you in studio.
It's a pleasure and good morning, our viewers.
Dr. Peter Mbai also joins us this morning. He's a leadership and governance expert. Dr. Mbai, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And political risk analyst Desmas Mukwa, I introduced him earlier. Karibu once again.
Thank you.
Let's start from there, Dismas, because we had already started this conversation, and you've had the conversation there. And just listening even to the apology that the president offered to Tanzania and to Uganda, he still used the word if. Does it mean even those ones do not still qualify as proper apologies?
Well, you know, these apologies, as we said earlier on, there's a science to apologies. And the moment you put a condition in the apology, then it's not an apology. It's just a mere statement, because the president says if. So he's actually not admitting liability. He's just saying if. So in the event that I've made any mistakes, in the event that there's an error of commission or omission, I seek your apologies. So there is a probability that he thinks he's made a mistake, and there's a probability that he's not made a mistake. And that is why the young Kenyans are very quick to dismiss it and saying that we are not going to accept a conditional apology. However, the president must be given credit that it's very rare for leaders to come up and in fact behave in a manner suggesting that they've made mistakes and they're seeking reconciliation. Because the purpose of an apology is actually to seek reconciliation and to build trust, to build bridges which have been blown up. And I think it's two-way. As a nation, people need to sit down and ask themselves the various, all the parties in Kenya, not political parties, but persons in Kenya need to sit and ask ourselves, where did the rain start beating us? Because there are so many things which have gone haywire. But observing what happened during that national breakfast meeting, when the president offers an apology to our neighbors, it raises an issue of foreign affairs and our international relations. The last couple of days, there's been conversations between Kenya and Tanzania. And it seems that a good population of Tanzania and a good population of Kenya are reading from the same hymn book. And the cabinet secretary responsible for foreign and diaspora affairs, he came out and issued a very solid strategic paper on the strategic imperatives of political and economic diplomacy. Now, when you look at Tanzania, our border is about 777 kilometers with 6 border posts. And according to latest statistics from ESC, Tanzania is the biggest source of FDI for Kenya. And they've got 19 projects ongoing in Kenya. As late as at the beginning of this year, there was this giant company called Amazon coming to Kenya. And when you look at our exports and imports, it's only Tanzania which is in top 10 in both categories of imports and exports. And that is why Honorable Musalia Mudavadi said it's important to ensure that the bilateral relations are not compromised, and at the same time defending the sovereignty of our people. And it's also the same with Uganda. Uganda is our biggest export market. That is why it was very important for Musalia Mudavadi to ensure that while we have Kenyans who are activists going to Uganda, going to Tanzania, they may even want to go to North Korea, that their movements do not in any way disrupt the state-to-state relationship and also our commercial interests. Okay. And you know, the president spoke about that as well.
Okay. Dr. Peter Mbai, we've been talking about how the president has handled and the kind of statements he's made with regard to what happened last year with the Gen Z protests, that he's yet to issue any comprehensive statement on the same. We've seen him on public platforms, rallies, just issuing casual statements on the same, saying it will not happen again. When he hosted the Finnish president, he also said, while answering a journalist, that all of them have gone back to their families. Now we're seeing him apologizing and qualifying his apology by saying if. he has wronged them. Do you feel that this is just another one of his casual statements with regard to what happened last year?
I think, Fred, we have a problem, but it's good for Kenyans to know that it is the first time that the prayer breakfasts have been done on a Wednesday. Prayer breakfast is normally done the last Thursday of May. But I think because of the schedule of the president, that's why it was done on a Wednesday. Whether that should be the case or whether it should stick, and then the president should align to the diary, that's another story. But now, Fred, my word goes to half-hearted apology. The moment you say if to any apology, it's done. It's no longer there. Now, if you look at the body language of the president, he was pushed by the speaker. It is the speaker who prescribed that he should do this, and he was cornered. He was in the loo, people clapped for the speaker, and like he had nothing else to do. So it was half-hearted. Look at the body language. If we have done this, you don't have to. And I keep on telling people, please, if you don't want to apologize, please don't. It doesn't make sense. It actually aggravates. So you'd rather have gone back, reflect, maybe 2 weeks or so, think whether he wants to apologize or not. It's not a must you apologize. It's not a must. If you think what you did was right, please, it comes out even worse. Now, it started with the professor. And the DP goes to say, they should also, already fighting them, And then, Gen Zs are adults. They want to be referred as young people. At least call them young people. You don't want to call them adults. Don't call them children. Oh, it messes up everything. It began by saying our children. And the evening. Now, let me say this. There's nothing to apologize about Tanzania. What are we apologizing? What mistake have Kenyans done? This is an East African community. People want to cut so that you fix Uganda there, Tanzania there, Kenya there. So, first of all, there's nothing to apologize about Tanzania. There is everything to apologize about Gen Z, but don't do it that fashion. It actually messed up thing. The speaker, I think, had a very good brief that Kenya, the biggest issue here with the government is Gen Z. And if you are going to address the president, you must bring the issue of Gen Z. That is a brief I think the speaker had. But it came out so he was cornered and then he began saying, if. I want to say today, from where I see it, it fell flat. It didn't have an impact. And by the way, you don't apologize, try to apologize, when you are still doing what you are supposed to be accused of. I'll pick only one point. Gen Z spoke about a lean government. Actually, when the cabinet was dissolved or the ministers and all that, the idea was there were supposed to be very few ministers, maybe half of the PSs, but they went back and expanded executive. So that's why I'm saying there was no need to try to apologize, because the things that Gen Z said, Gen Z spoke about do the right thing. He tried calling them for a meeting. They said, wait a minute, please, you are the president, do the right thing, follow the constitution. We don't want any more drama. But what has happened? Collapse of institutions, of processes and systems. So according to me, that apology ought not to have been there. It was a forced one. Okay. He was just caught up in the hole and there's nothing you can do. Abductions are continuing. And then the prayer of Erach. You see, these things should be natural. Prayer breakfast should be very natural. You don't come and pray against social media in such a prayer. No, what are you praying about? People, what are you praying? Saying God to intervene on social media. I think if somebody wants to use those prayers now to answer the prayers by curtailing the freedom of social media, it will not work.
Okay. Bwana Sosion, there seems to be a push for the president at least to lead us to a point of closure. In as far as what happened last year with the Gen Z protests. Probably that's why the main speaker in that forum suggested that an apology would be the right route. But if the apology is not delivered properly, it would not serve that purpose of getting us to a point of closure.
Fred, I listened to divergent views and some of them, how the president's message was received, and you could still see some people trying to promote bitterness and continue with bitterness. Whereas you look at the theme of the prayer breakfast, it captured an issue that has emerged within the country, which is a challenge to the country. And Fred, our republic is founded on the philosophy of peace, love and unity and independence, and therefore I'll underscore the aspect of unity. The intergenerational unity is a challenge to the country, and that becomes a challenge at the doorstep of the president as a person who has to lead the republic to ensure that these key tenets of and pillars of freedom are promoted. And therefore the president coming out voluntarily to build preachers and to send a goodwill message to this generation of young Kenyans. You know, these are the Gen Zs, these are the Kenyans who enjoyed free education from Kibaki, and therefore it's a population that that progressed upwards without limitation. So it's a huge population that is well educated, and they're a very vital component of our democracy, and they are vibrant, and therefore the president sending out a clear message to them on a day where the country has gone to the altar to pray, and in that mood of prayer is the right thing. I don't think it is right for us to try and poke bad holes on statements made at the altar.
And I'll remind you that what we do here is look at the dailies.
The thing is, at the end of the day, it's an apology.
The People Daily calls it crocodile tears. The Nation says it was a half-hearted apology.
No, the People Daily, the person at the People Daily, a person calls it crocodile. Another one calls it half-hearted. Those are views of one or two individuals. But the overall message to the country is that we are in a prayer breakfast. We are reflecting on the future of our country. We are promoting national unity and nationhood and the statehood of the republic, and therefore underscoring the message of the speaker of that special event of apologizing. What is wrong with all of us apologizing to ourselves? And let us not question how we apologize.
All right, allow me to welcome Wakili into this conversation.
An apology is just an avenue of encouraging people to move close.
Thank you, Bwana Sosion.
And we have lived with it through civilization and through generations.
Thank you, Bwana Sosion.
And it will be here.
Thank you.
So we cannot academize.
Listening to the president, gentlemen, listening to the president, his deputy, and even the other speaker, Beatrice Elachi, speaking there, it would appear that this was not a united front. It was not something that has been discussed. This government has not come to the point of an apology yet. Do you get that feeling? That probably what the president said is not the general feeling of this administration, that they need to apologize?
Thank you very much, Fred. What we need to understand first is that the president is the symbol of national unity. It doesn't matter. This was a prayer breakfast. When you come to a prayer meeting or you come to the altar, there are no dictates of how you come to pray. That's the first thing. A prayer is your message and your communication with God. So you do not dictate how you come for a prayer breakfast. If or not it was a united front from the government entities, it should not. You know, you come to a prayer meeting when you feel there's something you need to communicate, there's something you need to engage with God, and that is what happened. Elachi had her own feelings. Professor Kithure Kindiki had her own message. The president, as a symbol of national unity, had his own message to the nation. And it should never be lost that, there are things that have happened last year in our country. There are things that have happened from last year to this moment. And you cannot say the president was forced to apologize. The president came out and say, and I've had my friend Dr. Mbaye saying, this is a conditional, it is a conditional apology. And he says, when you put if, it rubbishes everything. No. The president comes out and say, sometimes we do things that we do not know we've wronged someone. I could be right in what I do, but someone else feels offended by what I do, and what I feel is right. So when the president comes and says, if I have wronged you, please forgive me.
Yet, Wakili, the issue is, whatever happened last year is in the public domain.
Yes.
Things did not go well, did not go right. last year. This is not something that we are saying, maybe I don't know, maybe I know. This is something that everyone knows and is aware of. Even in such an instance, don't you think that the word if was a bit misplaced in that one?
No.
In this case of the Gen Z, if you're apologizing to the Gen Z, whatever was done to them is in public domain.
You remember the president came out, and at that time of the Gen Z protest, the president came from Naivasha. He gave a press statement on the same day. And then, subsequent to that, the president went back, sat down, listened to the Gen Zs. What did they want? Number one, they wanted the cabinet to be reshuffled at that time. But then the president came and said, no, let the entire cabinet go away. Let me go and rethink and see what you need to do, or what I need to do as the president to steer this country into safety and peace. Then the president went out, came and issued a subsequent presser and said, this is where we are as a country. This is what I think we should be headed. And when you say the president, you know, there are things we did that are wrong. When the president says if, you know, as a symbol of national unity and as a citizen number one, the president has a mandate to guide this country into peace and stability.
As someone who took oath of office to protect the lives of Kenyans, we are aware that quite a number of people died in different circumstances. Don't you think that he should take responsibility and say, yes, it went wrong? As a president, as a person who took oath of office to protect Kenyan lives, I am sorry for that happened.
Let's remember,
because it did happen.
You know, Fred, if, let me use this word if. You know, if the president had said in a lackluster manner, handled this country on that, I think it was 26th June, you know, we might never have had a country.
Okay.
So he took the responsibility of saying, you know, let me take this channel to make this country stable fast.
Then he doesn't need to apologize if that was what his intention was.
If I just add a point there, the moment you use the word or you introduce if, you are introducing probability in the conversation. So the president is not sure whether or not there is an error of omission or commission. That is the importance of if. If you use an example, you've got a cow, then somebody comes and steals your cow. You go to his compound, you find that the cow is actually in his boma, and then he tells you, if I've stolen your cow, please accept my apologies. But this cow is not in your boma. It's at his boma. You found him there with the local chief, the village headsman. Everybody has seen that your asset has been moved from point A to point B. This person has been apprehended by the local law enforcement officers. Then he says, Mr. Fred Ndimuli, sorry, for you maybe the case of cow may not make sense, chicken. So somebody has stolen your chicken. So you find him with your chicken, and then he says, if I've stolen your chicken, please accept my apologies. But you've caught him red-handed. So the conditional apology may not work. However, he must be given credit that he listened to all the speakers, he listened to the members of the audience, and you are making this subject, or rather, he's made offering an apology be a national conversation. And you see the reason why he cannot come out in the open and say that I'm taking full responsibility. You know, there may be legal consequences to that. There are people who are waiting to sue him because the moment he says 100% accept liability as a head of state, then he'll be opening a can of worms.
We've seen this week President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda and the First Lady issue an apology, actually ask for forgiveness from the people of Buganda and Uganda for actions that may have occurred over the 40-year period that they've been in leadership. Asking for forgiveness for that kind of person, is that an admission of liability?
You see, the moment you say may, and these are the problems you have with leadership, it's okay to apologize if you are genuine. The moment I saw them reading something, and then they always say may, you know, may have offended, may have done. You miss it completely. You don't have to. Now, but there's something very important, Fred. Always apologies come with, I mean, you must restore some form of restitution. Mm-hmm. You can't come and say, you know, if we did ABCD to Gen Zs, come and say, that's why I'm saying that was something that was caught, people are caught up in the heat of the moment, right? That's why you can see the body language. Just look at the body language. You come and say, Gen Z, this is what happened. Out of that, I have done ABCD. I've ordered, because somebody seems to know who abducted who and where they are even now, or wherever they are. This is the full list of the people, like I promised. Number 2, you talked about lean government. You talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Just that's what you say. There's an element of restitution. Some of us who are Christians, you remember Zacchaeus? He came back and he went and he said 4 times, I'm going to give back. So please let's stop. We are Christians, right? Let us stop, demeaning or making so light of some of these things like apologies before God, what you do about restitution. But this is very important. You have mentioned Uganda. Fred, let me ask you, what was the intention of the president mentioning Tanzania and Uganda? Remember what Prime Cabinet Secretary said the other day? Because his statement seemed, in the mind of Kenyans, to be supporting what Tanzania did. Now, this is the president. He is saying, by the way, I also, because what are you apologizing about? What wrong did we do to Uganda? What wrong did we do to Tanzania? You see, it's a script. Because it seems, therefore, that whatever happened to our brothers and sisters across the border, and whatever happened, in Uganda with Mother Karua and the whole story of BCAJ could have some, that is, we are here to read. We read what is said and what is not said. That is very telling. But Fred, as I finish, the speaker said that Borden noted that the young people, some of who have gone to college, bought homes, married, were crying out for the right to be treated as adults and respected. The idea that came yesterday from the National Prayer Breakfast is that the leadership of this country still think Gen Zs and millennials are children. Okay. Let us be very clear. That is the thinking. It came out from the DP, from the president. I saw that. I say, wow, again, did you mention children again? These guys want to be treated as adults. So we are here to analyze, right? What I think happened yesterday, there was no, the whole thing about when the speaker spoke about that topic, they were caught flat-footed completely. To an extent, and be careful, Kenya, when we hear somebody as Beatrice Arachi praying about that, political prayers. When you're given a platform to pray, then you introduce politics. Be very careful about this social media thing. Okay. Nothing in government happens. Take it from me. Nothing just happens by chance. Anything said in public means something. It's interesting, the kind of statement that the deputy president issued yesterday at the same platform, saying that these young people need to respect authority. Was that really called for in a day where people are reuniting, talking about coming back together and forgiveness? Then he comes out and says the young people need to. Does that even water the president's speech? From where I come from, my background as a teacher, enforcing some order and pronouncing some disciplinary direction is good in character building and character formation. Doesn't it water down the president's statement of forgiveness? And the culture? No. I think, Fred, it is not right to promote hegemony and disagreements in a society. When the deputy president talked of the young people respecting the older generation, is simply underscoring part of the philosophy of our culture and what goes on in an orderly society. We are an African society, and promoting respect, intergenerational respect, is key. Both ways. There's a continuum, and there's a dynamic equilibrium that flows both ways in a continuum. So, in a society where we think values and value systems are breaking down, it's upon the leadership, it behoves them to pronounce remedial directions without fear. And even if it means correctional on a given generation, we must be bold about it. When you are disciplining people and when you are promoting discipline, you do it with love from your heart. It has nothing to do with hatred. It has nothing to do with condemning. That is not condemning. And so, from what I picked from the deputy president, because he was very candid, and I think he even went very deep to promote intergenerational respect and cohesion, including even
those who have not been born, they must be part of us, part of our plan, and we must think about them. And the whole philosophy is a cohesive society that is working in unity to confront the challenges facing the nation and working in unity to build our nation. I think that was key. The message was key. And in this media space, we cannot baptize the messages to look very negative, as if nothing was done, as if the prayer session was inconsequential. Then why should we have it?
All right. And you've said something that probably would lead us to an ideal situation as a country where the greatest challenges that we encounter, at least we get closure from that. We get to a point where we're all on the same page, discussing the same thing. Listening to the different leaders, each one of them taking a different tangent on what happened last year, it would appear that we are not in that place yet. The Deputy President feels that there needs to be more respect between generations. Another leader feels that social media needs to be tamed. The President here talks about forgive us if at all we did anything wrong. The young generation feels you still don't get it. Surely, there is a disconnect. What would take us as a nation to a point of closure where we are both or we are all on the same page on this matter? What would it take for us to get there?
I'm not old enough to know what has been and what would be, but this is my take. You see, first of all, we have the guiding laws and principles. We have the Constitution that guides us on what we need to do as a country. And for us to have a closure, and I think at the moment we are at the point that, everything is out there for anyone to do anything. Because we have people, we have the social media. And I'm not saying the young people are doing anything wrong. They are exercising their right to project what they feel. But then as a nation, we should be guided by a principle that, see, we have a country to protect here. We have a nation to build together. So what I think we need to do as a country is that, we need to harmonize our energies. We need to have a bigger picture and avoid this disconnect between, there's an older generation, because I saw this coming from last year to this year, that, the younger people feel like, we are not being led right. Mm-hmm. But how should we be led? How do we think that things should move? We have the older generation thinking, this is the order of the day. This is how we've been doing things since independence to this moment. The younger generation feel like, no, this is not what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is that, let us not be afraid to address our issues. All right. And I think that came out even in Tanzania. When I saw the parliamentary discussions in Tanzania, when they were saying, haya ni maadili yetu. Mm-hmm. Sisi tumelelewa hivi. Sisi hatuelewi vile. So what we need to do is go back to that and say, our values as a nation, and this is enshrined in our Constitution. They are national values. Let us stick to the national values that, this is what we should be doing. This is what should guide us as a nation to know in the prosperity and in the coming years, this is where we should be.
All right. And it should be noted that it's almost 1 year since the events of June 25 last year, and the country is still yet to get to a point where we're on the same page about this matter. Speaking of apologies, and I'd mentioned earlier that President Museveni and his wife also issued an apology to Ugandans. Probably let's listen to them and see how different, if at all, this apology can be delivered in any other way. It's part of the stories covered at TV47, Museveni admitting to leadership wrongs.
We therefore stand here to repent and ask for your forgiveness and forgiveness of especially the people of Uganda and the whole country, for restoration and favor. Lord, restore the favor that we had with them in the beginning. Bring healing to their hearts, soften the hardened hearts, and reconnect us to the original vision of our national unity.
I remember a few years back, President Daniel Moi also, the late President Daniel Moi also offered an apology and he said, kama kuna mtu nimekosea, anisamehe na mimi pia nasamehe wale wamenikosea. This is something similar. What kind of effect does this have where the president and the first lady in choral decide to issue an apology like that?
You know, now this issue of an apology is opening a Pandora's box that we're even discussing the merits and the demerits of apologies. But to pick up from where Wakil left, as a nation, there is Article 32 and 33 about freedom of expression, freedom of association. What, in my view, the president needs to do as the head of state, as head of government, as a symbol of national unity, is just manage people's expectations. And he must offer leadership in managing people's expectations. I think that is the challenge we are facing in Kenya, because every generation has got expectations. Gen Z have got the expectations of the leadership. The leadership has got the expectations of Gen Z. I think there is a need to have a meeting of minds, have some sort of an intellectual conversation, an intellectual intercourse, where people present their divergent views, and we manage expectations. Because it's very easy for a sector in society to believe or behave in a manner suggesting that actually they understand the issues affecting, say, the millennials or even Gen Z, and also for the national leadership to say we really understand what everybody is looking for. And that's the reason why we have public participation in all these things. Now, for President Museveni, it's very rare for him to offer that kind of an apology, and he deserves a pat on the back. And unlike for President Ruto, for him, it seems that apart from the audio challenges, that in fact the apology was written. So he probably took time to reflect on the apology and what he intends to communicate. And in my view, I think that is the reason why we need to give President Museveni a pat on the back and President Ruto, because it's very rare for African leaders to go to the podium and accept mistakes. You would remember, like, the former president of DRC, Mobutu Sese Seko. He behaved in a manner suggesting that he has no capacity to make mistakes, and he wouldn't offer any apology. So the fact that President Ruto today has offered an apology, we expect all public servants of rank, when they make mistakes, an error of omission or commission, to actually come in the public space and accept that we have made mistakes. And then number two, public participation now should no longer be ceremonial or a box to tick, because if you've got very solid public participation, then you will be able to manage people's expectations. I think what really the challenge here is managing expectations. And Dr. has said that one of the things that Kenyans were looking for is maybe a lean cabinet or maybe a lean team of advisors. I'm not sure whether that is really what Kenyans are looking for. Kenyans are looking for a superior return on investment, that if you are a cabinet secretary, what are we getting from your office? If you are an advisor, what are we getting from your office?
Okay.
That they need a public service which is efficient and effective.
Okay.
And having an efficient and an effective public service all over the world is actually a tall order if what Elon Musk has undergone through the last few days is anything to go by.
And I want us to focus on the way that apology was delivered in Uganda by President Museveni, a written apology, something that you've sat down, took time to write, probably with specifics. I mentioned Buganda. I'm not so sure what happened there, but yes, acknowledging particular issues that may be of concern to the Ugandans. Do you think that probably in the Kenyan context, something well thought out, even written, a written apology would be better?
Thank you, Fred. Let me tell you the context. And Uganda is a very interesting country where I've had time to be there, visited all the key places, and really, as a student of political history, really started to understand. Now, I'll tell you this, Fred. Always look at the context. Nobody tells you where that apology was delivered. It was in a crusade, again. It was a church function. It was a crusade called Light Up Uganda for Jesus. You see, the emotions. Because it's lighting up Uganda for Jesus, now you come, and the only thing you can do to appease the people is now saying, I'm sorry. Again, the context. Go to State House, please. Be deliberate about what you want to do if you are genuine. Come and say, these are the, don't say for all the things we did. How? You cannot apologize for all the things you did. You come and say, these are the issues we think we ought to have done better. And this is what we have doing to make them better, because we are still the president for 40 years. Anytime, Fred, you come and see general apology. You know, sorry for what I've done. How? You come and say, I think my words to you last night, Fred, the message I sent to you was a bit insensitive, and I apologize. Okay. I withdrew. Look here, again, in a prayer crusade, and then the only thing, because of, you know, forgiveness of all that. That's why I said, I think now, this is another problem now going to East Africa again. I hope we are not going to see that thing again in another country in East Africa. There's something, this apology thing, which is not. Are
we saying it's an African to apologize?
No, please, no, mark my words. I just said, look at what happens here. Look at what happens there. Please, if you want as a Christian to go and apologize, I have given you an example of Zacchaeus in the Bible. Please come and say,
and I want us to wrap up this issue about
the restitution, this is what I have done, and these are the measures that I am doing to restore.
We even had President Daniel Moy. Is it so an African?
Yes, it is not an African. It isn't. That is why we have it in our vocabulary.
Genuine.
In all our linguistic groupings in Africa, the word apology is there. It's part of our culture. And Fred, I want to create one understanding that right after independence, Africa slipped into totalitarian and autocratic authorities, where authorities were never questioned. But Africa has changed. We have democratized our governance. And so being open and frank to the people of Africa is a virtue that needs to be demonstrated. And presidents coming out to apologize on shortcomings of the state is a good thing to do. Mwalimu Nyerere did it in 1985 when he was resigning as the president of the United Republic of Tanzania. And he said, the mistakes we have made in the past, forgive us. And Tanzania, you can still see governance and culture system has remained strong for a long period of time. And that was the first African president to accept to retire from office. And we have seen term limits. It's now a normal thing in Kenya. No president will rule beyond 10 years. We have our own pattern. We have developed our own political culture as a country. And if offering apologies is part of our political culture, it will go on. Moi said it when he was going home. Because when you are in leadership, you don't know those who feel offended by you, and also those who offend you as a leader. I've been in leadership position. And giving a general apology. And of course, Moi did it at Nyayo Stadium in his last...
Towards the end of the...
In his last Jamhuri Day speech. And he did it nicely. And it resonated with the people. And we still see the clips circulating it. And we have seen other presidents following suit. And when you are in charge, you speak what is in your heart. And when our presidents are now speaking very openly, it is showing leadership. Even all of us, we should be able to apologize those we hurt around us.
Listening to Bwana Sosoni seems to suggest that an apology should come towards the end.
What is wrong? We must learn to apologize.
Let's allow Akili also to speak on this. That probably the best apologies come towards the very end of a president's term. That probably
the election. And when the election is around the corner.
That President William Ruto's probably it's too early for him to apologize.
Not really. You know, an apology, as Sosoni has said, you know, it comes from the heart. It doesn't matter the time, the point, or even the place. You know, but when he said, you know, it was in church, it was a prayer meeting. In Uganda, it was in church. You know, that is where, you know, you need to make your heart pure, your wrongs right. And it shouldn't really be towards the end. An apology should be at any point, at any time. When you feel like you've offended someone, when you feel like my actions or inactions or omissions, as has been said earlier, you know, it shouldn't really matter the time. But you know, sometimes you feel, or you know, there could be things that I thought were right. I thought I did things right, but now maybe some people felt offended. Maybe some people, were hurt by my actions or inactions. That's why I say, if I have done any wrong to you. And you know, it's very disheartening that as a nation, we are discussing an apology.
No. Fred, in my view,
I want us to finish this story about
an apology is a mark of leadership. It's a best practice in leadership. There are leaders come up and said, I suspect there are errors of omission and commission, and I offer my apologies. That should be a topic of discussion for the next 1 year. And I'd like to take a departure from what Dr. Ara said. His conversation suggests that the president was genuine, and I'm wondering whether he's got capacity to determine whether President Ruto was genuine or not, or how he's come to the conclusion that the apology was not genuine. I know that...
the same conclusion that people daily and the Daily Nation arrived at.
Everybody. The Standard Nation.
Yeah, everybody's coming up with the conclusion. But you see, Dr. Ari sits in a place where he can influence public opinion. So the moment he stands out and he says, wait a minute, I suspect that apology was not genuine, then it's incumbent on him to prove that, in fact, the president was not genuine, because that is casting aspersions on a very solid leadership trait.
All right. Very last one.
I don't need to belabor this. Or what I'm saying, like you said, apologies are very, but with the right intention and action to say, this is what has gone wrong, and this is what, after reflection, that steps I'm going to take to move forward. Remember, the Ugandan elections are also next year, so there's this issue of trying to be nice to the voters. Let it be genuine, please.
Okay.
With actions on how to move it forward.
All right. An apology and how it should be delivered. That's a big discussion today. Should it be crocodile tears, half-hearted, or otherwise? And should you include the word "if"?
That's it.
To qualify apology. I think that's the basis of that.
That's the basis. That's the whole.
We'll leave it there.
That's it.
The other major discussion yesterday was around what happened, the drama surrounding what happened to the Juja MP, George Koimburi. Yesterday we saw the top brass of the police, the DCI, I think even NIS, I think I saw even Gilbert Masengeli, all standing at one place to explain how the MP abducted himself. Let's watch that story, then we can discuss how this police reaction and what it means.
He's not.
Let's watch the story.
This guy is already.
The drama surrounding the alleged abduction of Juja Member of Parliament George Koimburi has taken a fresh twist. With the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja saying the lawmaker staged a self-kidnap.
We were able to expedite the investigations and to expose him to the public that the Member of Parliament was indeed not abducted.
According to Kenya's top cop, preliminary investigations reveal that Koimburi arranged with his close allies to execute the alleged kidnapping outside Full Gospel Church on Sunday, 25th May in Mogodha, Kiambu County.
As they were leaving, a silver Subaru Forester, registration number KBP 096W, approached the main entrance. And the two heavily built men burdened the MP into the vehicle.
According to the investigations, a suspect in custody admitted abducting the Member of Parliament after the church service and dropping him at a bar and restaurant in Gatondo, where he spent Sunday night in company of two other people.
Tana admitted to dropping the MP at a hotel where he had refreshments and spent the night with two abductors on 25th May 2025 following the alleged abduction.
Kenya's top cop, Douglas Kanja, further revealed that the suspect revealed to investigators that he picked up Koimburi the next day on Monday morning and dropped him at a coffee farm in Kiambu, where he was found dazed and writhing in pain. Detectives further revealed that the MP's allies used a Subaru Forester to abduct him outside the church before transferring him into another car that drove him to the hotel in question.
That is the Hoda Serabi. He picked up the MP from the hotel and took him to the scene where they claimed he had been dumped. Before the MP exited the motor vehicle, he helped him tear his clothes to fake evidence of torture by the alleged abductors.
Two more suspects alongside Cyrus Keru Moher, the owner of the Subaru Forester believed to have been used to execute the alleged abduction, is being held at the DCI headquarters in Nairobi. Video footage, which the DCI have been investigating for its authenticity, showed Kiombori being driven away in a silver Subaru Forester bearing civilian registration plates. However, DCP party lawyers have held the position that Kiombori was abducted by security agencies and that he is currently recuperating at the current hospital, an allegation that has been downplayed by the DCI boss.
He did not suffer any injuries whatsoever, and perhaps he could as well be staying at the current hospital enjoying his 5-course meal.
Samira Mohammed for TV 47, Nairobi.
Yes, indeed. It's another big discussion, and it's on all the pages, on all the papers, actually making it to the front page of the Star. Police, how MP Koimburi abduction was staged. And it's very interesting that from time to time we get to see a lot of drama even from our police bosses coming out on some cases. I remember one incident last year when the Quarry killings, and within 24 hours they had already made an arrest, sensationally. Eventually that person, the main suspect, escaped and has never been caught again. Now this time round, we have senior-most police officers having a press conference, going even to the crime scene, inspecting and touching part of the evidence, and coming out with a declaration that the MP had abducted himself. Question is, and I think that's a question on the cartoon on the Daily Nation today, these same police officers have not been able to tell us who abducted the young Kenyans, but on the question of who is abducting himself or allegedly abducting himself, they're very fast. Bwana Sosion, this hot, cold reaction by our police is what we're talking about. Whether or not the MP abducted himself or was really a victim of abduction, that is not the issue here. It's the kind of reaction we're getting from the police 24 hours after the incident. What do you think of that?
Let's allow our police to do their work and give us accurate information on matters in security. And we saw the meticulous work that the police did with the murder of Ongondowere, which was also sensational, and the narratives around it was taking a misinforming direction. Kenyans deserve quality information from the police and accurate information about insecurity incidences. That is the mandate of the police, which of course is independent under the Police Service Commission and properly facilitated. So with this alleged abduction of Honorable Koimburi, the investigative agencies must investigate, because it will be known where anybody was, where Koimburi was, and we've seen the accurate information that he was dropped by a car that is known, which belongs to a friend, from a hotel. They can tell you and connect the pattern where he was, and they've talked to the farm manager, and it has become difficult dealing with the matter at the hospital. And there are certain facts that they've established, and they've pronounced it to the public. And when they pronounce it accurately as a police. And so, you know, as a country, we must be a country that believes in truth. We must not be a country that deceives the people. And therefore, the people of Kenya deserve the absolute truth in anything that goes on. If people are feigning abductions, if people are feigning illnesses, just like we saw with the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, when it was a moment for him to be gross examined in the Senate, that's a fact. When it was a moment for him to be cross-examined at the Senate, he suddenly got ill and was admitted at Mata Hospital, which many Kenyans don't believe.
Let's not go that
Karen
direction.
Hospital.
It's not professional.
Karen Hospital.
I mean, it's not
At
professional.
Karen
Looking at it,
Hospital, many Kenyans don't believe that really.
Yourself and the police appear to have.
No, it is my own statement.
No, we are not discussing.
It's my own statement, and you can't. That's a fact.
Gentlemen,
it is my own statement.
Then allow me then to ask Wakili.
So that then,
now that you're being unruly, allow me to ask Wakili.
So that then,
Wakili,
we can't go that
the pattern of staging of lies,
we can't go that direction.
is
Wakili.
real in Kenya.
I don't think that's
How fast can such an investigation be carried out to conclusion? Because this could be probably a preliminary results of a preliminary investigation. Yet the police, and these are the top police bosses, coming out probably 48 hours later with a conclusive report on the whatever may have happened. Is it normal?
First of all, Fred, I think we should commend our investigative agencies. You know, as a country and as a leadership, we always say, let's empower our institutions. This is not just anybody, and we are not saying any investigation should be lesser than any other. We are in the wake of the killing of Ong'ondo, which the police, and I commend, have done investigations. And they
investigations are still continuing.
They are still continuing. This is a member of parliament. Koimburi is not just anyone. In your experience, does it happen like this, that within 48 hours? And I must say this with this permission. There's a friend of mine called. He posted on Facebook the other day that, you know, as advocates, I think we should be objecting to applications by the DCI or the police saying, you know, we need 30 days to investigate. We need to hold this person for further 7 days to investigate. I think our police and our DCI are doing a commendable job. And sometimes we never know the reasons behind. They are seeking for time extension to continue investigating. But normally, when things are glaring, you know, investigations, you don't need anything special.
The police have not even had an opportunity to talk to the victim or to the person involved in this yet, and that we understand.
Exactly, and that is.
Can they talk about having a conclusive
and that is, you see, Fred, I don't need to talk to you to know you are in TV47 this morning. I can talk to him and know that you are hosting a breakfast show. You know, I don't need to talk to you. For the DCI to talk to Honorable Koimburi, you know, it is just to bring to a finality or conclude the part of investigations. But they have talked to key witnesses who have recorded statements, because they say the drivers recorded statements. The lady who drove George Koimburi to the first response, I think it was an hospital in Juja or Thika Road. They have talked to those people, and they have confirmed to the investigative agencies that, you know, I was with this person at this particular time, and you don't need to talk to Koimburi to conclude that.
Given the statement given by the police bosses yesterday, should we now expect the MP to be presented before court at some point, or is there any form of criminal liability on his part, if at all we go with the statement by the police?
I think I can't recall exactly what provision maybe he should or should have breached, but as a responsible leader, you need to offer. I mean, you need to be truthful in what you do, and I think and I feel it's not really about George Koimburi being abducted or not. This is a political script. We've seen the events of politics over the last could be several months, and sorry, Daktari, but this is after the impeachment of the deputy president, the former deputy president.
So we are not certain.
These things are scripts.
Fake abductions are things that should be pursued in court, probably.
This should be pursued in court. So and I feel that, you know, as a leader, you need to be truthful in what you do.
So if at all we go by the statement by the police yesterday, then George Koimburi, we should expect
should be held accountable.
Accountable
for his actions.
Be presented before court.
Yes. Okay. I feel that, you know, as a leader, you need to be truthful and guide the country in what way it should go.
We are in a position where, a point in time where the line between the truth and non-truths is very, very, very thin. And we're not so sure whether the police or the MP is talking the truth.
But the police...
You know, you are addressing the elephant in the room because, as we've said times above number, we're in that era of misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. So one can actually say that the law enforcement officers have got capacity to engage in misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. And one can also say that the Honorable Koimburi has also capacity to engage in misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. But I think the elephant in the room right now is about the trust we have in public bodies or public entities. Because in the past, if the law enforcement agencies pronounce themselves that from their preliminary investigations, these are self-abduction, everybody should take that position to the bank because these are the law enforcement agencies or officers. But right now, there are wafts of doubt. People are not very sure, is what the law enforcement agency is saying the gospel, or are they part of another script? Now, we've been around the political space for a very long time to know that a number of politicians are very good in political drama, and they engage in all manner of drama to grow political capital. And at this stage where we are today, if you're a politician aligned to the Waminyoro coalition and you engage in this kind of drama, then you grow political capital and you generate a bit of political sympathy. It's for that reason that Dr. Ria, when we were discussing the personality of President William Samoei Ruto and his apology, he spoke on it with alacrity. But at the moment Sosion started discussing about the impeachment and that maybe Rigathi Gachagua may have faked an illness, you know, he was up in arms. He almost disrupted the conversation. So we need to be alive that politicians in Kenya and political activists, depending on how their bread is buttered, depending on their political interest, they can engage in all these issues. Okay. But a member of the National Assembly or a member of the Senate, somebody who was an elective office, must not be allowed to get away with this kind of thing. If indeed the law enforcement officers comes with evidence that the Honorable Koimburi engaged in self-abduction, then he must face the full force of the law. For one reason, that he should serve as a lesson to the others. Because if you start having these kind of incidences, these are the incidences which constitute a threat to our national security. Because there is nobody in this world as powerful as an elected leader. Whether it's an MCA who has been elected by 100 votes, whether it's a president who's been elected by 80 million votes like it's in the US, anybody with an elective office is a very powerful person. Okay. And as we approach 2027, if indeed this was a self-abduction, if we don't nip it in the bud, then it's going to become a normal occurrence. So people will keep on abducting themselves. And it even gives opportunities now for criminals to actually engage in this abduction. And at that stage, you have to commend the Honorable Millie BAMBA at the National Assembly yesterday, because among all the MPs who spoke, she made a lot of sense and said that if indeed this is a self-abduction, then you need to be very careful, because it can easily serve as a best practice that you want to run for political office and you want to be seen that you are going against the government, because you know today it's seen as fashionable to go against the administration. Then you do it for purposes of running for political office. So if indeed he has engaged in self-abduction, then he must be punished. And if the law enforcement agencies are also misleading Kenyans that it's a self-abduction, they must also take responsibility.
All right. I want to give you the final opportunity, and allow me to make this correction that we refer to you as a leadership and governance expert. I know you are, but your correct title is Secretary, Planning and Economic Affairs at the DCP. Yes. So when you speak, that is the word.
I like that. You know, I like it. Okay.
So
thank you.
On this issue.
No, of course, yes. Yeah. Chama kubwa, you know. we need to recognize that there is a big party in the house.
Fred, thanks a lot for.
But anyway, I'm here of course to analyze. Thanks so much, Fred, for that. Now,
Fred, thanks for giving us clarity on that.
Thank you, Fred. I want to say this with all humility, and as I hear my colleagues speak, one, I love leadership and governance. We are here to discuss issues of this country. And I want to reiterate very clearly that I believe in the sanctity of government. I mean, I've served in government, both the county and national governments. I've studied very serious courses in senior leadership management in this country. So I believe in sanctity of government, number one. I want to be very clear on that. Now, having said that, you ask a question which I don't want to run away from. What happens, the speed we see in all these issues? And I want to suggest this. As we see the speed with the people who killed, you know, the member for Kaspol, the speed with which this is happening, the question you asked was, according to the cartoon, the people whose kids are still missing, abducted a year ago, some of them found dead. Nobody has ever been arrested for parents, for kids who are found dead. Those who are still missing, they are still waiting upon the same government, the same IG, to issue a statement tomorrow saying, this and this and this young person who was found, this is a person, this is a status of investigation, how far they have gone, or the person who killed him is this person. That's a question you ask primarily, first of all, so that we don't get lost. These are the questions in the minds of many people. And you see, for us, we reason to the ground. But number two, I want to stop all this issue. We have discussed here as if we know everything, as if we have, you know, we are the spokesman for DCI and IG. I want to stop at saying this, and I like Didmas what he has just said. Listen, I choose to listen, to wait for the honorable member, George Koimburi, to give his statement. Up to now, the party leader for DCP went and saw him. He made a statement. The following day, none other than the former vice president and the Wiper party leader and other top leaders of this country, they went, saw George Koimburi, they gave their statement. Yesterday, we dispatched our legal team yesterday to go and see George Koimburi, and I choose to believe those three statements that came from the hospital, until the MP himself is able to speak. And I like what my colleague said, Wakili. There's no need of talking to George Koimburi. You know, surely you can't talk that as a lawyer. You can't come and conclude something and say there's no need of talking to the person who is being accused of all these things. There has been a lot of movements, Fred, with all arms of government, all arms of security people, and they seem to be all over the place doing everything. For me, I choose to believe, yesterday that's why we sent the legal team. They went there. I spoke to them after they left the hospital. And they told me what they told me about the situation of George and what they think happened. I don't want to speak about it now or what I'm saying. Thank you so much for what the IG spoke. It's all in all the papers. Thank you so much. We are waiting for the statement from the MP for Juja. Okay. I don't want to go on issues talking about many things which, like I said, as somebody who respects who respects the rule of the law and the process. Yes. I want to wait to hear what the MP is going to say. Thank you for that. And allow me this much because of time.
Everybody has spoken. All professionals, apart from medical doctors, it's important to take that into consideration.
Right. Yes. And controversy on the reported abduction of Juja MP George Koimburi deepened after Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja recounted how the lawmaker allegedly stage-managed his kidnapping. It also emerged MPs were denied access to their colleague at a city hospital. That will continue, and of course, you have a right. It will be part of discussions going forward. If you are sick, you don't. At this point, gentlemen, I want us to switch gears completely and pay tribute to a fallen hero, a giant of African literature, Ngugi Thiong'o, who died yesterday at the age of 87 in the United States. And as we make our final comments, I'm sure we'll start with you, Mwalimu Sosion, as you make your final comments. Kindly talk about Professor Ngugi Thiong'o.
Yeah, Professor, and let me say, James Ngugi Thiong'o, because we know that was his baptismal name.
No, he didn't go with that. Well, he was becoming controversial.
I'm not controversial. I'm speaking from my background and experience, of which he later dropped the name James and remained Ngugi Thiong'o. Is a leading literary giant globally. A very well acclaimed writer who has been listed for Nobel Prize competition, and he has been an inch close to winning Nobel Prize for literature. And one of the writers who has promoted indigenous languages, and other than writing in English, a lot of his work is also in Kikuyu. And at Kamiritu, you remember those days when dissenting voices were not allowed by the authoritarian regimes. You know, Jomo Kenyatta regime in terms of measure of democratic standards also was authoritarian and intolerant at some point. And remember Kamiritu Theatre Center where the Ngahinda and Almari When I Want play was stayed in Kikuyu. And people thought when Ngugi was writing in Kikuyu, he was a little bit too backward. But we've come, the post-2010 constitution, we've come to appreciate the value of indigenous languages and which forms the rich heritage of our country. And with the advent of modern communication, the digital information, and FM stations, the mode of strong communication with very rich indigenous words and languages and phrases and idioms is our vernacular languages.
All right.
And to me, I give it all to Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. You've done your best. And I think where we are, the rest can pick from here. And you see, promotion of African indigenous languages is the best thing we could do. If we talk of other jurisdictions and civilization, you talk of the Japanese. The mode of language of instruction is Japanese. If you talk of Chinese, the mode of language of instruction is Chinese, Russian. In fact, Kenyans going to Russia must study Russian language first before you enter a Russian class. And I think Africa was over-colonized by being imposed to use foreign languages as official languages for communication. Anglophone countries have adopted English, Francophone, French, and the rest. And I think what Ngugi did was to lead the African continent to get rid of neo-colonialism and begin promoting our indigenous languages. No wonder Kiswahili is a fast-growing lingua franca in the continent of Africa, which is an indigenous language. It's already official language here in Kenya, and we believe it will become, many years to come, even under Vision 2063 of Africa, I believe the mode of communication for Africa will be a language like Kiswahili.
Right.
Where Kiswahili is a language of communication for the East African community.
Thank you so much.
May the soul of Professor James Ngugi wa Thiong'o rest in eternal peace.
Thank you. Wakili, Dr. Mbahi will get your opportunity.
Thank you very much,
Let's listen
Fred.
to
And I do not want to water down what Mwalimu Sosiona said. He has said a lot and good things about Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And I also want to pay tribute to a giant of Africa and a giant of Kenya in languages and linguistics, as Professor Ngugi was. He towers above many in terms of literature. And it's sad that, you know, he passed away and died in a foreign soil. It would have been very great and nice to have him home. And as Sosiona said, you know, he was a victim of our past regimes who did not tolerate criticism, as I must say. And to him and his family, we say our condolences, and we pray that they find solace. And for person who studied literature, not that much, and we pay tributes. I mean, it has been a good ride with what he did. One of my favorite books from Professor Ngugi is Weep Not Child, and that is where I leave at it. Right. Weep Not Child.
Thank you, Wakili. Dismiss.
Yes, our condolences to the family, friends, and academy of Professor Ngugi, because he is a giant. But allow me to take a slight departure from just giving a tribute and say that Kenya missed Professor James Ngugi wa Thiong'o in a leadership capacity in Kenya. And as we look at the National Prayer Breakfast yesterday, we must ask ourselves that the people who attended that meeting and the people who spoke, do they understand Kenya's problems, and are they offering solutions? How many scholar practitioners do we have in leadership positions? People who understand really where Kenya is today, where it's supposed to be going tomorrow. Because, you know, at every election, we say that the people who present themselves for election are not necessarily the sharpest tools in the shade. That maybe there's a chance that scholars and practitioners, if you're running for political office, we are told that politics is a dirty game. Would you imagine if Professor James Ngugi was actually living in Kenya and he ran for a political office, like maybe Professor Wangari Maathai, whether they would have caused any change in Kenya? And we must encourage that people who believe they've got capacity and competence to run for these elective positions, so that after every single election, we do not start, crying and having voters' remorse that the people we've elected, maybe to the National Assembly, are not up to par. Because sometimes Kenyans, when you listen to the National Assembly or even the Senate, people complain about the quality of debates, people complain about policy conversations. And so that is why we encourage people like, a scholar practitioner like Dr. Fred Matiang'i, Okia Omtata, Maraga, people who think that they want to run for president. Because again, philosophers say that for a nation to succeed, they used to say you need to have philosopher kings. So we need people who understand what VUCA is all about, the changing scenarios, so that we can make progress. If we don't do that, we become victim of the Stockholm syndrome. We have fallen in love with our with our captors. And it's even surprising that people believe Rigathi Gachagua is the answer to Kenya's problems. I mean, when did he enjoy his Damascus moment? You remember a few days ago, before he was impeached, he literally went to the top of Mount Kenya and Kilimanjaro and said, this is the best leadership we have in Kenya. And when he has been jilted, he is doing all these manner of things. So we must ask ourselves that when we are voting, do we vote with our selfish interest in mind? Are we irrational voters? Or now we are victim to tribal chiefs?
Okay. And it's very interesting the way he's woven that story into...
Brother, this is very interesting. I don't know. Brother, I think one day we should come and discuss the Gachagua in full, because everybody is trying to go and put in him. I didn't expect that from Okua, by the way.
You get the fact.
We were very serious tributes to a great man. I don't know where the Gachagua is coming from, but let me say this.
Bad examples.
Let me say this, Fred. This is a great man. At 87, the man came, he saw, he has conquered. Not just his village. People thought by exiling him, we are going to lose him. But he went and, his wings all over the world. This is what we say a life well lived. The man started, 1960, the first book, Weep Not Child, 1964. He went on to do 34 books with 2 plays. The Black Hermit, and I think 1968, and Gaikadeda in 1870. Which then he went to stage a play at Kamirido village. And the great village, let me call it the great village of Kamirido in Limuru. And then it got issues with the first government, it's good to say that, with the first government of Kenya. And he was arrested, he was detained, yeah? Then he moved out and did wonders across the world. One lesson, you may think you are killing someone by suppressing them here in the village, then that becomes a ticket to go and expand. Maybe if he was still a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, maybe he would not have seen his full potential. He went close many times to winning the Nobel Prize, but I like to say today that he won many more bigger Nobel Prizes in the hearts of millions of people across the world. Right. He has been a great teacher, an author, a mentor, motivational speaker, and a real model of who one professor should be. And for record, Professor Thiong'o would not have wanted to be mourned as James. Please, let us be serious. This was men who took his, and all his children. That's how he wants to be remembered for. Right. So if people want to introduce other names now that he is gone, should go and ask for permission from the family.
All right.
Rest in peace, our great icon. We love you so much. Thank you so much for what you did for us. The biggest thing we can do for him, Fred, if you have never read any of his books, I want to urge all our leaders, kindly please, in honor of Professor, go and pick at least 2 books and read. If, like some of us who have read many of his books, we'll go back to our shelves and read more. Right. Just in memory of Professor.
Indeed, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who died at the age of 87, was a titan of modern African literature. A storyteller who refused to be bound by jail, exile, and illness. Some of the books he has written, now that there are quite a number, and the famous ones, The River Between. Some of those who studied literature at any level, whether school or university level, may have gone through this. Decolonizing the Mind, Whip Not Child, A Grain of Wheat, Devil on the Cross, Petals of Blood, Matigari, Wizard of the Crow, The Trial of Dedan Kimathi, which is an interesting one, Detained, quite a number. The Perfect Nine, Dreams in a Time, Moving the Center, and it could go on and on describing this great gentleman. Now that he has passed on, at least we have an opportunity to pay tribute to a great Kenyan. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Wakili Manasseh Tunen, Advocate of the High Court, Dr. Peter Mbae, who we have to clarify is the Secretary Planning and Economic Affairs of the DCP. Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, who has served as former SG of National Union of Teachers and also as a member of the National Assembly, and Dismas Mokua, who's a political risk analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time at TV47. One of the big headlines we did not get an opportunity to look at is this one, on the Standard, Ruto red-carded. And this is coming from a TIFA survey that was released yesterday, where 75% of Kenyans feel the country is headed in the wrong direction, with the high cost of living being the main reason, failed leadership, unemployment, human rights abuses, and corruption being the reasons Kenyans feel the president has let them down. You can get a copy of the Standard and read that yourself. After the break, we switch gears and talk matters myopia. It is a Global Myopia Awareness Week 2025. Do stand by for that.